I'm Rob Dansman, and this is The Better Semester, where I provide insight and actionable advice to parents of college students. I'm a nationally certified counselor and licensed clinical mental health counselor, specializing in work with college students and their parents to improve mental health, organization, and motivation. Today, I'm talking about sleep. This is another episode pulled from my most recent book, Insider's Guide to College, Evidence-Based Tips, Tricks, and Strategies to Win the Semester. As I've acknowledged in previous episodes, the insights and great info parents may get from professionals like me is not always fully embraced by their college students. You might feel frustrated knowing what they need, yet they just won't take your advice. Well, my advice to you is to learn what you can about mental and behavioral health. Offer help early before things get really bad, role model the change you're trying to teach, and finally, be willing to pull the authoritarian card if they're clearly heading towards catastrophe. Sometimes we just have to pull rank and force changes they may not buy into. Sleep is one of those things that many students fight against, yet, as the research shows and from my own clinical experience with students, it's the number one thing with a nearly immediate return on investment. Before I get into the actionable side of things, here's a quick explanation of why sleep is so important. To begin with, our brain uses sleep to clean out old processes and repair broken things. This might be neurological, psychological, or even physiological. Muscle repair, immune system rebuilding, anxiety response, and energy restoration all occur while we sleep. But sleep isn't a single chunk of software that runs throughout the night. It's a series of programs that have some overlap. We can see this in the 5 different brain waves and the 5 stages of sleep. If we don't experience all the stages of sleep and the different brain waves, the different reparative opportunities are compromised. It's not just enough to get 8 hours of sleep. Too little is bad and too much is also bad. We need 8 hours of quality sleep consistently. So if you happen to have one of those college students that is willing to listen, here are the evidence-based behaviors to improve sleep. These are the easy, actionable things they can do each night. If possible, lower the temperature. Aim for 67 to 70 degrees. If students can't easily change the temperature in their room, there are some new products specifically designed to provide greater thermoregulation. There are cooling blankets and even smart bed covers. 8 Sleep has one called the Pod 3 that has thermo controls and biometric tracking. While not really a thermocentric product, I've also had some clients have some success with weighted blankets. Make the bedroom as dark as possible. Use blackout curtains on the windows and block out light from door cracks. Something as simple as throwing a towel at the bottom of the door and cheap but thick curtains from Target work just fine. Next, don't use devices an hour or less before lying down. This one, it seems logical, but a lot of students fight this one. This is hard, but also really worth it. This helps turn off the college student from FOMO and addictive scrolling, all of which stimulates the brain and keeps hardware and software running. Next, don't eat an hour or less before lying down. Food is not our friend at night. Eat early. Food that's stuck in our stomach, despite the conventional wisdom that food makes us tired, just isn't true. A full stomach might not keep us awake the same way coffee or Instagram does, but it inhibits better quality sleep for sure. Next up, read a book. Remember those things? Even just a few pages are good at moving the eyes back and forth and distracting from racing thoughts. Plus, the light reflected from the paper is way less stimulating than from a screen. Yes, even including a Kindle. Next, make sure to set an alarm for the same time every day, even if they don't have class. Never ever use snooze. The sleep between snooze alarms is terrible and actually makes us feel worse. Next, don't use caffeine after noon. It stays in the blood and brain well into the evening when you don't want a stimulant. We could even include prescribed stimulants for ADHD. Taking them later in the day, even if we don't feel super alert, keeps our brain running. And finally, alcohol and weed. Students swear they help with sleep, but actually they keep our brains from entering into necessary wavelengths, leaving us feeling groggy in the morning. Oh, and weed messes with our memory, motivation, circadian rhythm, and hunger. This is a great example of students not appreciating the subtle impact of unhealthy behaviors. As for sleep medication, I recommend college students avoid things like Ambien and Lunesta. They are classified as sedative hypnotic sleep medications, which depress the central nervous system and limbic system. They have been implicated with several side effects, including sleepwalking, sleep eating, waking, cognitive impairment, and grogginess the following day, to just name a few. Oh, and we also need to talk about melatonin. It's probably one of the most misused and misunderstood sleep aids. Melatonin is actually naturally produced in our brain's pineal gland until sunlight hits our eyes and signals the brain to inhibit production till it's dark again. Melatonin is not just a key neurohormone in circadian rhythm, but also in weight regulation and immune function. Melatonin is not just found in animals, but also plants, fungi, and some bacteria. I've had lots of students that take melatonin regularly and take too much. Despite it being an over-the-counter supplement, I recommend students consult their doctor since there's evidence of contraindication with psychotropic medications. Contraindication means it doesn't play nicely with others. The general rules around dosing, frequency, and duration are clear-cut, though admittedly not necessarily rooted in great research findings. Recommendations are to not use more than 3 to 5 milligrams per night, take it about 30 minutes before bedtime, and don't take it every night, and don't take it for longer than a few months. Again, not very helpful, but a starting point. The psychiatrists I've worked with also affirm these recommendations and acknowledge that it's our best guess. Lastly, there is some research that shows that taking melatonin too regularly actually disrupts the pineal gland's natural production, which eventually disrupts our circadian rhythm more and more. On a final note, I'm encouraging students to use smartwatches and trackers more and more as the tech gets better and better. Devices like the Oura Ring, not a sponsor of this podcast, the Apple Watch, I wish it was a sponsor of this podcast, or Garmin watches, they're also not a sponsor, provide some fantastic sleep data that can show the impact of behavioral and medication changes I talked about earlier. In an upcoming episode, I'll be talking about tech and details around some of these devices and other cool biometrics they track and how college students can use them. It might be difficult to convince your college student to get better sleep, but if they can make a few changes, they can improve nearly every part of their life without having to compromise having fun at night. Okay, that's it for this episode on sleep for college students. For more information, check out my blog at motivatecounseling.com or my 2 books on Amazon. Just search for my name, Rob Dansman.